You already know what we do when it comes to all elite wrestling on this channel. And guess what? It's gonna keep on coming because last night's show was not the best. It was still entertaining, still pro wrestling, still watchable to an extent because of the talent that the company has, but just behind the scenes creative, everything falters. Everything about AEW, how they book things, how they get to try to tell their stories, everything fails in that instance. And this is just my opinion. It's subjective. You might have a different opinion. You might think that I'm just badgering AEW to badger. But make no mistake about it, WWE has cooled down to the point that people are not caring as much about War Games as they should be. AEW has cooled down even more to the point that last night's show, we could hear literally everything the crowd shouted out. One member, two members of the crowd, if they shouted out something, we could hear it like that. That's a problem. And I think AEW's problem starts with the fact, number one, they have way too many titles, way too many championships. AEW, of course, we have 8 different titles under the AEW banner. And on top of that, you also have Ring of Honor superstars and Ring of Honor champions showing up on your shows. So, again, the title of this video. AEW does need a brand split. It absolutely, definitely needs a brand split. But not in the way that WWE did it in 2002 or 2016. They need a brand split behind closed doors. They need to organize and structure their stories, their characters, their champions behind closed doors in a creative process. Because the fact of the matter is, most AEW fans, most fans in general, if they have to watch 1, 2, 3, or 4 different shows on a weekly basis, they will not watch every single show. So you can't have stories jumping from one show to the next, and then people get lost. And on top of that, AEW doesn't really do recaps. At least not as good as WWE does to catch up the audience on what transpired before. So again, there's a lot wrong with how AEW is trying to tell stories in the business of sports entertainment. You can call it pro wrestling. AEW is in the business of sports entertainment. We care about the wrestlers because we care about their stories, we care about their motivations, and right now, most of their roster has no motivation. You can't keep track of it. And the reason I say that they need a brand split behind closed doors is because I don't want them to be exactly like WWE, where you have a Dynamite roster and a Collision roster. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But you do have to take a step back, look at your roster. This champion currently has a program with this superstar. We keep this rivalry, this match, this feud building up on this show only until we get to the end of this story at the pay-per-view, and then they both go their separate ways, and you can just move champions, move stories around at that, move champions around at that point, move superstars around at that point. Because I don't want to have to watch Jon Moxley take over Dynamite, and then he's not there the next week, but he shows up on Rampage. And then even less people watch Rampage. So guess what? The week after that, he goes back to Dynamite. He explains what he said or what he did on Rampage. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. That's the problem. That's a major issue with AEW at this moment in time. So here is the simple way to organize this. Ring of Honor superstars, Ring of Honor world champions, Ring of Honor champions in general, stay in Ring of Honor. Get them their own roster. And yes, this is the only instance where I will copy WWE, make Ring of Honor Wrestling into their NXT, into their developmental program, into their breeding ground. where they have a ton of superstars, a ton of young people on that bloated roster, putting in reps in matches and developing their skills and their characters before they get to mainstream. As simple as that. Simple, basic concept. And to me, that means Chris Jericho can't be Ring of Honor World Champion. To me, that means Mark Briscoe can't be Ring of Honor World Champion. As simple as that. Rampage is a 1-hour show. So we give them the Continental Championship. Every single championship match for that title has a 20-minute time limit, which I'm a fan of. Matches don't need to go on for 30, 45 minutes, an hour to make them entertaining. Absolutely not. So keep that title on Rampage and build a couple of 2 more stories, 3 more stories on that show on a weekly basis heading into the pay-per-view or heading into them kind of leveling up to Dynamite or Collision. And then we give Collision the TNT Championship, the most historic mid-card title in AEW history. We give them the Trios Championships. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Collision and there are 2 or 3 trios or multi-man matches on that show already. So why not go full throttle ahead? And you give them the Women's World Championship. Because the Women's World Championship is the main title in the women's division. You give them their own show. And on Dynamite, the flagship program of AEW, you keep the AEW World Championship. Absolutely. You always keep it on your flagship program. You keep the International Championship. Title that has been renamed countless times. Just keep it as International Championship. Stop with the gimmicks. Just make it a championship worth fighting for. You give the tag team titles, and then you have the mid-card women's title over there, the TBS title. And then those stories, those championships stays on those brands. Those stories built to the pay-per-view. And then once we get to the end of each story, that's when whoever was a part of that story can break off and go to a different show to start a new story. As simple as that. Organize. Structure your champions, your stories, your rosters. AEW is a bloated mess. And fans are noticing it. Even AEW hardcore fans call that out on a weekly basis, and they just keep watching because they are loyal. But I'm going to keep watching. AEW is pro wrestling. It's the end-all be-all. It's an alternative. There's too much talent to not support AEW. So that's what I'm going to do. But for now, again, creatively, it is lacking severely. And it hurts me to even try to care about the storylines that Tony Khan and whoever's a part of that creative booking department brings to the table. So with that said, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me with the fact that AEW needs a brand split behind doors? Maybe you think they need a brand split all over the place, just separate the rosters with how big and bloated their roster, their current roster is? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comment section below. With that said, I'm Alexis Carrillo. This has been Wrestling Talk, and I'll see you next time.